Spring training, just a couple of short weeks. But why do we call them short weeks when it's really just 7 days? It's 2 weeks away. 2 weeks. MLB spring training will be here. We'll be drinking from a fire hose from all of the news. But first, we got to try to get exposure to our guys before they inevitably rise, or hopefully rise, or maybe not. Before our guys become the talk of the town in a couple of weeks during spring training, they're mashing the ball, they're hitting leadoff, they're going to make the team, JJ Weatherholt says. We're going to get into all that. We're going to draft a couple teams over on DraftKings and see if I can't get some of those my guys in these drafts. Let's do it. I am in the lobby of the $20 over on DraftKings already, waiting for apparently 10 sickos. We'll see. We'll see what we can do here to get this sucker filled. But while that is filling, welcome. Happy Friday, early weekend. Not a short weekend, not a short week, but nonetheless, it's an exciting time. I start to get more excited about MLB Best Ball, sort of like I'm still, learning who I love. I'm doing drafts and getting under the gun and figuring out, maybe I need to move this guy up. I need to move this guy down, right? You're reading. We're getting trades. Blaze Alexander gets traded from the Arizona Diamondbacks, opening up a potential spot for another fun young rookie in Arizona. We're learning stuff every single day. So you get to watch me learn in real time some of the things that I like. But you did, I'm sure, see on the thumbnail one player that I am particularly excited about. You will see in the rankings here, which of course you can get access to this. Let me move my dome out of the way here. You can get access to our MLB Best Ball rankings, as well as any rankings that we ever do on Spike Week. NBA playoff best ball is coming up. March Madness is coming up. College football will be here in the summer. And of course, NFL, MLB, everything for all the sites, all the formats, Eliminator, whatever. You get access to it for one price, including the tools and stuff you'll see here today. I know some of you already know that, but for those of you that don't, we got the Draft Hacker and the Draft Optimizer and Draft IQ and rankings and strategy content and all sorts of good stuff. We try to cover every single sport. Sometimes we have to make some small cuts. Sorry to the golf people. But I think that's really where our bread is buttered. We give you, in my opinion, the best coverage of all sports, right? There's lots of incredible NFL people out there. There's incredible MLB people out there and everything. But covering all, if you enjoy drafting fantasy teams, whether you enjoy NBA or enjoy college basketball or enjoy baseball, I think we can fill that void in your life. And like I said, it's just $39.99 a month, gets you absolutely everything, or $200 a year. Pick your poison. Just a couple of quick things. Hold on, I'm gonna check back in on the lobby here. Okay, 7 to 10. Okay. We're cooking with some gas. GM Scotchy Longhorn says the only slugfest I've entered are to help this poor channel fill some lobbies. You're welcome. Yeah. Getting a baseball draft filled is certainly a trickier adventure than, the NFL contest filled. These NFL people, he says, as he's an NFL person, just filling draft lobbies 365 days out of the year, no matter what. It is absolutely insane. Baseball can be a little bit trickier, but I wanted to pull up some of the rankings and hold on, I have Underdog here. Go to DraftKings. Our nice little rankings hub here that, of course, you can find all of our rankings and download them for use. You can see the change log as well. So you see a couple of changes I made this morning. Getting the aforementioned, I didn't mention him, but Ryan Waldschmidt from Arizona into the back end of the rankings after the Blaze Alexander trade. I finally bit the bullet and moved up my guy. If we're talking my guy from a late round pitcher, it's probably Jacob Lopez of the Athletics. Officially moved him up into the range where I kind of have a lot of these other pitchers that I like in the late rounds, or some pitchers that I don't like that I buried a little bit. But you see, the Lodolos and Bubiches and Kikuchis and Shane Smith and Grayson Rodriguez and these types. I think Jacob Lopez deserves to be in that range as well. So we moved him up. We moved him up there. But Corey Seager is, of course, on the let's go over to infield. Corey Seager is, of course, on the thumbnail. He is one of, if not my favorite player to draft in MLB Best Ball. And there's something to be said, something I've been quite poor at over the years. I shouldn't go that far, but drafting really good baseball players, particularly, of course, really good hitters, and sort of living with what happens over the course of the season. There are a fairly finite amount of like, yep, this dude rocks in MLB Best Ball. There's a lot. It seems like it should be a little bit more straightforward, but looks like we're at 9 out of 10 for anybody that's joining right now. We're just trying to fill a slugfest draft over here on DraftKings. We can hop into one of the lower dollar ones afterwards. There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of aging players who probably are still good, including Corey Seager. But there's like certain little levels of risk. And then it's always fun to speculate on, which I will do today, right? We just talked about Waldschmidt. JJ Weatherholt is one of my absolute favorite players to draft in all of these drafts, particularly after the Brendan Donovan trade, right? These teams have opened up some guys' pathways to not just making the opening day roster, but starting and being a starter on opening day, playing probably every day. And they're fun, exciting, talented young prospects. Those make for great picks. But there's also, like I said, something to be said for not always chasing this, like, well, this young guy, he's going to keep getting better, and building in the stability of professional, really awesome hitters like a Corey Seager. And so that's something that I'm always trying to balance in my drafts, getting a let's see what the wrong sport. Let's see if they got this nice new $4 out here, 20 max, that I need to that's 10 out of 12. Let's see which one fills. We could do them both at the same time. 10 to 12 in the 20 and 10 to 12 in the $4. So we can do two at once. We're fully capable of this. We built some tools to help us with this. But just some other guys of note to me at this point. Freddie Freeman is a pretty good example of this. Later in the aging cycle, for sure, and certainly not the Freddie Freeman of his peak by any stretch of the imagination. But man, just still a rock solid, absolute rock solid professional baseball hitter, hitting in the middle of one of the greatest lineups ever, right? There's just something to be said for that. I feel the same way about the Braves. Matt Olson, you see Austin Riley on here, some of these Braves guys, where I think we're getting some pretty darn good prices on these really, really good Braves hitters. And I shouldn't say, Matt Olson is really good. Austin Riley is a little bit more up and down, but these are just rock solid baseball players. And I've sort of been massaging my process a little bit to blend these guys are definitely getting worse but remember, they're still really good. That's why you see like a Mookie Betts and a Trey Turner on here I have a little bit more difficult time with, because I'm not entirely sure if I can classify them as still really good. Mookie, I'm probably going to move Mookie up slowly. I do want to see spring training is a fun thing where looks like our $4 filled. Spring training is a fun thing where you don't want to fixate too much on the results, right? Like hitting well in spring training can be a real big false flag. Like you can run into a lot of trouble, but you can also learn some things, like say a Mookie Betts, to see like, okay, I just would like to see some more life. And there was a little more life in the second half of last year after the illness, that he lost a bunch of weight. Not a guy of the size that's able to lose that much weight and still be, a powerful Major League Baseball hitter. But I am rather concerned about someone like a Mookie Betts. Same thing with a Trey Turner. I agree with Goose that spring training is more about depth charts and health and escaping without your guys getting injured. I agree, it is more about that, but you can still learn some small little things, right? And I think Mookie is one of those guys. Like, I would like to see a little bit of life. If we see sort of like, oh boy, Mookie is not making much loud contact at all still. He's already not going to run like he used to. If the main feature is just the name and the lineup, that's sort of the difference between a Mookie Betts and a Freddie Freeman, where I'm not saying that Mookie has turned to dust, but Freddie has yet to really turn into a bad hitter. He's still a great hitter and hitting within that lineup. So I'm trying to balance, like I said, some of those things. And then again, right? So Spencer Torkelson is like one of my favorite examples of that. Talk about sort of checking all the boxes, because you get the youth, you get the prospect profile, you get infield, unfortunately, but you just get this stone cold, rock solid hitter who's going to play every single day for the Detroit Tigers. And I just know that he's good. Is Spencer Torkelson going to become the next superstar hitter? I don't know. Probably not. Most people are unlikely to become that, but am I getting this rock solid hitter that's going to play every single day? And I can mix in, right? You see, I'm ahead on Jackson Holiday. I talked about some of those rookies I want to draft. Those guys are introducing a level of risk that I would like to offset, right, with some of these types of guys. Oh boy, we had a bunch of people drop out of our $20 here. So maybe let's not do. I guess it was you guys, huh? So let's skip the $20 then. Just focus on the $4 here. Goose has been hammering some Jackson Holiday and the Orioles in general. I too like the Orioles and Jackson Holiday. I'm with you. They're a little bit weirder this year with more bodies, which feels a little bit uncomfortable, but that's not going to take away from the Jackson Holidays of the world by any stretch of the imagination. Taylor Ward's going to play every day, etc. It's great to see Goose bounced back from the. For those that don't know, Goose is our resident Mets expert and Mets diehard, and it's good to see Mets fans still hanging on after a disappointing last season. Actually, I don't hate what the Mets did by any stretch. I mean, I think Freddie Peralta was a great addition. It feels an awful like some very Metsian moves again. Not a lot of, my God, I can't believe the Scooble price. That's crazy. I'm going to take Kyle Tucker. Very Metsian moves with Bo Bichette was the best available. But Bo Bichette is not really a star, right? So we're getting older Lindor. You replace Alonso and Nimmo and McNeil with, feels a lot like we're just sort of moving the deck chairs around. Luis Robert is, of course, a wild card in that. If he is the player he was years ago, then I think it makes a ton of sense as a low risk, high upside addition, kind of the one they needed. So I would applaud them for that, for like kind of understanding, like, oh boy, Marcus Semien, probably not it anymore on offense. And Pete Alonso is gone. And we can't really, Juan Soto is Juan Soto, but we can't really rely upon Francisco Lindor being Francisco Lindor forever. So we probably need some upside swings. And I do like that they made a couple of, there'll be some youth upside in the lineup and then a Luis Robert. But I'm a little bit worried about the Mets and the Mets hype overall. Goose, you think that the Mets could be good? No. I don't believe it. Yeah. Coulon was flabbergasted to see Soto stole 35 bases last year. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Not something I would be banking on happening again. That is for sure. But Juan Soto is incredible. There's no arguing. No Juan Soto slander coming from over here. Let's see. Okay, half of my Tucker teams already have Ellie. I think we can go ahead and pass on that. I think I have. Who do I have at the top of the rankings here? Jordan. I got 20% Jordan. Let's do him. Speaking of rock solid, awesome, professional baseball hitters, Jordan Alvarez is one of them. I miss the days when Tucker Alvarez was a stack on the Astros. Those were the days. He just needed a change of scenery. That is a great one. I wonder how we need somebody much smarter than I to go back through the amount of times that someone, so like this example, was good, turned to shit, and then go somewhere else. And right, this is the cliche thing that the royal we will say all the time in these examples. Well, he just needed John Morant just needs a change of scenery. Luis Robert just needed a change of scenery. Marcus Semien had he's going to bounce back in a terrible park for him. But anyway, right, they just need a change of scenery. How many times do you think that works? Like, these cliches are so funny. I have no idea. Maybe it is a thing that happens a lot more often than right? If you compare a bad season, so Luis Robert has a bad season and then changes teams more often, they do actually bounce back in the new scenery, like compared to the average person who didn't change teams. That would be like really fascinating to see. Yeah, the first base coach getting a lot of the hype for the steals no longer there. Feels like the Mets were willing to semi-sacrifice this year to set up a younger iteration of the Juan Soto. I think that's a good point. And it's like air quotes younger. Right? It's not young, but it's younger than it has been in recent years, which I think is smart. They should be building around Soto's timeline. This reminds me of sorry for like NBA references, but the NBA trade deadline just happened. I'm in NBA. I was listening to an NBA podcast right before this show, so I'm in a little bit of NBA brain, and I will soon be in baseball brain. But the Philadelphia 76ers, right? Joel Embiid, like MVP, one of the best players on planet Earth, but then has a million injuries, and he's still good, but he's not. This is not the same player anymore. But they have Tyrese Maxey, right? The Mets went from Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, etc., to, well, now your best player is Juan Soto. So you should be building around the Soto timeline, even if it's not completely optimal for this season. You have enough money to still be really good every year. So there's no reason to not be good. But in terms of strategically planning out all your moves, you really should be optimizing for the Soto timeline, just like, say a 76ers team should be optimizing for. I'm going to take a Wyatt here. I don't have a share of Wyatt yet. Not because I dislike him. It's just sort of how it's shaken out. And that's how I feel, right? Optimize for Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe. Optimize for Juan Soto. Don't optimize for Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor anymore. Matthew Stafford got his change of scenery. The interesting thing, so that's an interesting one. But Stafford wasn't ever bad. I think everybody always thought that Stafford was awesome. He was just on bad teams, which is like, so, then there's this chicken or the egg thing. It's like, how much is he really helping them win? And then we see you put him with Stafford or McVay and co. And we see the difference. I tend to believe baseball doesn't really work that way. Like, baseball's so different as a sport in that at the end of the day, there's new, right? you run the bases and you play the field and stuff. But still, it's kind of closer to golf or tennis in that it probably tennis. It's like it's me against you. There's pitcher catcher combos and stuff. There's always caveats and nuances to it, but it's a little bit more like tennis where like I'm hitting the ball against you. What they do on the other court doesn't really matter to my performance. Like my performance is my performance. Like my counting stats will change based upon, whether guys on base in front of me or they're, whatever. Does the guy drive me in? All that kind of stuff. But we don't, in terms of player evaluation, I don't care about how many RBIs you have, Wow. Good Devers price, but we got a bunch of that. We got a bunch of Freddie. And 50% of Tucker with that. Don't have Buxton. That's okay. We got 3 outfielders. So let's actually do Matt Olson here. I always take Freddie or Devers on those teams. Will tell us if the value of lineup protection matters for a guy like Robert. I think, and again, this is me riffing. I've not done studies on all of this kind of stuff, but the lineup protection thing is like one of the more overrated things I've ever seen. It certainly does not hurt. I am not going to argue that it is a negative thing because that's obviously not true. But I think it's similar to the change of scenery and like a lot of the cliches and stuff. I just don't think it's as big of a deal as maybe we tend to think that it is. Good hitters hit. Good hitters get on base. You can still optimize every if pitchers are not going to throw you strikes because someone is, then walk. Right? So your home runs go down, your extra base hits go down or whatever, but your on base percentage should go up. If the point is, right, lineup protection is that they now have to pitch to you because they can't afford to put you on base because of the guys behind you are good as opposed to guys behind you being bad. If the guys behind you are bad, so they're not going to throw you strikes, then you have no excuse to not get on base at a high clip. Right? If you're good. That's sort of the hard rational. And now maybe there will be some guys that do, like they get on base at a high clip, but the power goes down or whatever. But then that to me that's a bull signal. If you just have a big fall off in your performance across the board, now we should start to question you. And we shouldn't just assume like, oh, okay, because Freddie Freeman's sitting behind you, you're going to be awesome. When you didn't have the wherewithal at the plate to take good at bats and understand that, look, I'm just going to have to walk more. Again, just me riffing, but how I tend to think about these kinds of things. Thank you. See, like I said, much smarter people than I. Chris says studies have been done on it. It's pretty much just noise. Eric, what do you think about attacking pitching staffs as opposed to individual pitchers? I'm into this. There are a few that can be had relatively cheap. I'm into stacking pitchers. I don't want to go overboard. And DraftKings can be a little bit different because, and I think we talked about this maybe last week, where, the playoff rounds, it's good for the regular season getting 2 starts, but you're sort of going to get that anyway. And in the playoff rounds, of course, we still want 2 start weeks in the playoff rounds because 3 starts is much better than 2. But it negates it a little bit where the DraftKings playoff rounds are 2 weeks total scoring over the course of the 2 weeks. It doesn't reset. If it reset, right, you took week 1, now you get those points, but now we start over. So then you would have guys they have a 2-start week in the first week, and then some other guy has a 2-start week in week 2. It's like in this instance, they both just have 3 starts. So instead of getting 4, you're still only getting 3. You're just getting the highest scores of the 3. Now I want the 3. You still want the guys who are getting 3, of course, but it's a little bit. There's Seager. Yes, we're taking Corey Seager. Yes, I know he was not my highest ranked player. No, I do not care. I'm taking Corey Seager because he's on the thumbnail. What kind of psychopath would not take Corey Seager when he's not on the thumbnail? Also, I keep trying to push Seager. I think Seager's eventually people are gonna get hip to Corey Seager, because I keep trying to say, like, well, I don't need to take him around ahead of ADP because he's around pick 70 or something like that. And then he never gets back to me. Like, I should, like, based on my ranking, I should have like 85% of Corey Seager, and I have like 30 or whatever. So sometimes we're just gonna have to bite the bullet and take him. As much as I love the Braves, or as much little Freudian slip there. You heard it here first. Goose loves the Braves. As much as I hate the Braves, I think Olsen and Riley are underpriced. I'm with you. Acuna can't really be underpriced, and Ozzy Albies is absolutely terrible. But Olsen and Riley I like a ton. Yeah, exactly. And this is a great point, right? Someone would say, "Well, aren't you worried about Seager being healthy?" Sure. Welcome to sports. Welcome to baseball. What's one thing I believe in, especially for baseball, even more for baseball than for other sports, is the best ball element of this is really big for injuries. Now, injuries that knock you out for the whole season, pitching injuries are different. But from a hitter injury perspective, of course, I want to have all my guys playing the whole season. But I don't take a zero in the month of the year, right? Whether it's one straight month or spread out across the season, that Corey Seager misses. I'm not getting 0 points. I need other guys that are going to score points, of course, in those weeks. But what I really need is, when you play, I need you to play a certain amount, and that can, of course, be part of the problem. Ooh, I haven't even gotten Neto yet. Let's do that. Of course, that can be part of the problem, is that they don't hit, right? There's like a bar you have to clear in terms of how many games you play in order for like you to have some value, or a significant amount of value, not some value. But as long as you clear that bar, now what I really need is for you to be awesome when you play. And Corey Seager's results were not quite as good, but every other, right? I used largely batted ball StatCast level metrics. The first thing I'll look at is essentially xwOBA or something, right? WRC plus sort of tells me about how well did you perform that season, and then we dig to like, okay, well, how did you hit the ball? And we're looking at the StatCast level data. And so I'm sort of working my way down in terms of a high level macro view of a player. And like, everything about him is awesome, still awesome when he plays. So like, I don't see any signs that he's not that player anymore. And those are the kind of guys I'm looking for, because if the market is like, okay, I'm tired of this guy missing time, but when he plays, he's freaking awesome, you can still advance teams with those guys even when they miss time, because you're not taking zeros. This isn't, and you can still do it in other sports too, right? That's just how best ball works. But if I lose a 4th round or a 5th round pick in the NFL, it's actually very difficult to replace them, even for now a month in football is very different, right? But for 2 games, George Pickens missed, let's say George Pickens last year misses 2 games in the NFL. You were using his score like every week. You probably don't actually have just some guy you can lock in from round 17 that is going to fill that wide receiver score, because there's just not enough players, and certainly not enough guys at the back end. In baseball, these guys might not be awesome at the end of drafts. There's full-time players who are like quality hitters in the last rounds of drafts, or have the potential to be quality hitters in the last rounds of drafts. So I'm a little bit more willing. I don't want to take on, like, Byron Buxton is different than right? Royce Lewis, apparently the Twins, right? Those kind of injuries are certainly different. We have to handle those with a little more kid gloves, but you guys get the difference. That's how I'm thinking about it. That's why someone like a Seager is just like such an insane priority for me. Yeah, I would agree with this. Similar to Trout, It is definitely similar to Trout. When Trout plays, he's still very good. He's still a very good hitter, but he is definitely not like what we have all thought of Mike Trout as over the course of his career. He's not that player anymore. Or he has not been that player in recent seasons, particularly last year. Doesn't mean he's not still good. Doesn't mean he couldn't return to form. Nothing is impossible. I saw Trout is not going to get insured for the WBC, so take that for what you will. I will take that for that is a man who's made a lot of money and is feeling frisky. He too likes to live dangerously. Does Mike Trout? I don't know why you would do that, but hey, to each their own, man. Whatever. It's Mike Trout's world. He knows more about his body and about baseball and about all that than I'm sure he knows more about insurance than I do. Look at that. Riley comes back here. So now we got 4 infielders and 3 outfielders. Tucker, Jordan, Wyatt Langford, Matt Olson, Corey Seager, Zach Neto, and Austin Riley. This is a fun team. I can't believe that. What's this in the $4? Damn it. I can't believe I'm going to win the $4 with this. What's this, $10K to first? Yeah, $10,000 team right here. This is a good point, not just about any individual player, but about all players that, right? So spring training's not here. We're not really getting much news, relatively speaking. And then of course we're not getting day to day, right? Insights. There's no games going on and reporters talking to coaches and players every single day. We're not getting that stuff. And so, I mean, just look at the draft list. Like, now, granted, some of these guys are going to be out, right? But Blake Snell, Maikel Garcia, Spencer Schwellenbach, Jose Altuve, Brandon Woodruff, William Contreras, Zach Wheeler. Like I said, some of these guys are going to be out, but there's also a lot of guys that just have out tags that aren't actually going to miss time. And I'm not even necessarily including Seager in that. What I'm saying is there's a lot of guys. God damn. I would like. It's not a bad price on Snell, even though let's stick to our guns here. The Miz. Also, I missed Dark Sheep. Everyone should go, of course, check out everything that Dark Sheep does relating to MLB. One of the best out there doing it, and specifically focusing on a lot of best ball stuff, which is wonderful for our little niche of a community. I try to do about as much stuff in the MLB. Like I think I've told you guys this before. Don't tell the NFL people. I straight up enjoy the other sports in terms of drafting for best ball, figuring out rankings, following them, just the overall strategy and discussing players and all that kind of stuff for baseball, for basketball, for the college sports. Like it's so much more fun. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because I spend such an exorbitant amount of my time and brain power on the NFL. And frankly, the NFL product is just not that great. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you the other sports don't have their own flaws, but I don't know what it is. I don't even know that I have the reasoning, but I really enjoy like the niche sports. But of course, again, I am running a business. This stuff is paying my bills, and it's a great business. I enjoy the business. It's a lot of fun, but you got to give the people what they want. And unfortunately, the people do want mostly NFL. But if it were up to me, I would spend more time on the NBA and baseball and stuff. I would love to talk more baseball and not have it be about my stupid fucking St. Louis Cardinals. That would be awesome. when there's baseball talk where I'm from, it is inundated with Cardinals talk. that's fine. I have some good friends who are baseball knowledgeable, and we talk a lot about, the minor leagues and roster construction and all that kind of stuff, which is very fun. But that's not generally the case. It's mostly, well, are the Cardinals going to be good this year? Like, spoiler, nope. And so it's nice to be able to think about Corey Seager and to think about Waldschmidt and to talk about the Mets and Luis Robert and all that kind of stuff. It's fun. Thank you. I'll have to hop. This should be about perfect timing. I'll hop back into the slugfest here in just a second after I make this pick. So basically, Seager is the CMC of baseball. Not quite. No. Maybe this. No, I was going to say the CMC of shortstops, but shortstop is so good. Right. Shortstop went from a defensive position to an offensive position in baseball. Very, very cool. Damn it. Ben Rice goes. I haven't taken Jack yet. I always like to see if there's a news blurb on here to see if there's. I hate looking at it. Let's say Jack. 1 pitcher, 4 infielder, 4 outfielder through 9 rounds is fun. Definitely going to need probably a little bit more pitching volume on this team than I would usually with the Miz as my SP1. But we'll figure that out. This is 100%. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Goose. Let's. $11 and $12. Nice. Yeah. It is nice to be able to go to Cardinals games for cheaper now. It is nice. Absolutely no one knows who the opening day starter for the Cardinals is going to be. What does Fangraphs have it have? What's his name? Oh God, not Libby. I thought they would just put Dustin May in there because of. I mean, if it's Libby, Jesus. I'm actually quite bullish on the offense, like relative to like expectations in like best ball draft prices. I'm actually going to draft. I mean, Weatherholt I love, but Herrera, there's lots of mid to late round infielders that are good, but I think Ivan Herrera is just a legitimately really good baseball. God damn it. What's pitcher looking like, gents? Chase Burns. Yikes. Come on down, Mr. Pages. There's got to be some sweet nicknames for Pajes. Pages. Yes. Yeah. Herrera is a great hitter. The Leverman Catcher League says, Chris, I will say, I think he's going to play most days and DH quite a bit. So I'm into him. Not anything crazy. I think I've drafted him 1 time. So it's not anything. Like I said, Weatherholt is my priority. I just drafted Jordan Walker. I was doing a draft right before the show. I was walking the dogs, doing a draft. Here's my life in a nutshell. I was like, I got to get the dog some exercise before this show because I got some other stuff afterwards. Walking the dogs, there's a foot of snow on the ground still, though it's getting up to like 50 degrees today, so it's finally going to melt. Thank you, Lord. Walking the dogs, listening to an NBA podcast, drafting an MLB Best Ball team. But I did draft Jordan Driveline Walker. We're stealing that, Henny. Because yes, Jordan Walker went to Driveline. Yes, I will draft the guys who go to Driveline every single year. And yeah, he used to be Jordan Ground Ball Walker, and now he's Jordan Driveline Walker, which may revert right back to Jordan Ground Ball Walker for all we know. But I'm willing to take a shot on it. Anything to get me excited about a late round outfielder. I know he happens to be on the Cardinals, but anything that gets me excited about a late round outfielder, I'm in. We need more of those guys. Does baseball have the guy you need in quotes like football, or can you get away with not having certain guys due to number of players? I wouldn't say it has, because there's so many more games and it's a longer season. I would not say that there are quite the same level of guy you need, right? In the NFL, there's only 14 weeks, and with each guy having 13 games in the regular season. So if you have 6 huge games and you're like affordably priced, that is such a big deal, right? Scoring so many more points over such a smaller sample. So it's a little bit different for baseball, but there are definitely guys that I would say it's a little bit more comparative to NFL from the playoff perspective. I mean, there's certainly, Pete Crow Armstrong and stuff last year was huge. Granted, he forgot how to hit in the second half, but the playoff weeks will be really exaggerated, where, in any one individual week, one guy that hits a bunch of home runs, or one team that scores 1 million runs in an individual week in baseball, there's only so many teams doing that. Only so many hitters having big weeks in the playoff rounds. Like, guys will have big games, but does a guy do it for a week and a half in a row? It's very few and far between. So I would compare it to NFL in that regard. But the regular season, like, guy you need is a little bit more muted. Cal Raleigh, good example. Cal Raleigh was a good example. 40+% advance rate, right? That's the late round guy that just blows the doors off of. Here's a pitcher stack that I'm not going to recommend as a smart one, but a little Woodruff Mizorowski. I'm going to probably turn this into 7 pitchers given that. Yep, this is really, really easy to have happen, MC says. I'm pretty sure a dude advanced 100-something teams in the Dinger, which, of course, you can only draft 150. And, let's move. Let's do something a little different. Let's do Kurtz. Let's do the Oakland. You can tell I'm old. Let's do a little A's stack from the 112, shall we? I see Goose over there in the 101. Let's spice things up a little bit in the $20. But that's it. This is exactly when you don't diversify, you run into that risk. When you do diversify, right? People say, like, advance rate is all that matters. Well, the best way to advance a bunch of teams is actually take monster stands, because, you hit on Pete Crow Armstrong, you hit on Cal Raleigh, you hit on whatever, right? You hit on these guys, you're going to advance a shitload of teams. And now, theoretically, of course, that's awesome. But that's when we talk about the way we combine players. That's why we talk about it so much, is because if you hit on these things, like Cal Raleigh last year, like Pete Crow Armstrong, like hopefully Corey Seager is and JJ Weatherholt are, you are going to advance a higher percentage of teams. But if all of those teams look the same, right? If all the surrounding players are very, very similar on those teams, if you just draft off ADP but then reach for a couple of your guys, you're gonna have all the same teams, and so you're gonna be so heavily tied to the same combinations of players in those playoff rounds. And that is the tricky part. Oh boy, did not plan ahead here. We just scrolled all the way down for my Cardinal, Alec Burleson. Why do we do that? Panic. You guys have me thinking about the Cardinals and talking about the Cardinals. So I just completely panicked under the gun and took Alec Burleson. I do hate these rounds, like 12, like, sure, should you have taken Jose Altuve? Probably, but I'm trying not to get way out over my skis on Jose Altuve, Matt Chapman, and stuff, who I have as very good picks. But exactly, when all else fails, set up the stack with JJ Weatherholt. But I really do strongly dislike these sort of rounds. slight exaggeration, but there's not a lot to love. And I do think you should feel comfortable starting to scroll in the double-digit rounds, because I just don't think ADP is that efficient. I don't think anybody really knows what to do once we get into these rounds. It's a good thing I did 2 drafts. The being in the 112 in a stream draft is brutal. $20 rounds, and you got to wait 10 minutes in between each time you come on the clock, and you started it with 2 fucking athletics. Ay. I missed something in the chat. Sorry if you've already been over it already, but what do you think about the DK Slugfest prize structure? So it's a good question. I totally understand people's sort of concerns with things like the payout structure. Yeah, 33, right? It's $200,000 to first place, and the prize pool is $600,000. What's the min cash rate? $30. So you make $10 if you you make $10 if you advance a team. If you make it to the 3rd round, you make $100. So really, as almost always is the case in best ball, but particularly in these like the sort of lottos, right? The main tournaments with the big top prizes, you got to make it to the final. And then even when you make it to the final, you still probably got to make a run up the leaderboard. I really don't mind that. I think one could argue that you could accomplish the same thing in this tournament with $150,000 to first place and take that other 50 and just spread it out a little bit better. Or 100 if somebody wants, right? 100, 120, whatever. But it doesn't bother me. It really doesn't bother me too much this way. Let's see. Flaherty is such a good pick with these Brewers pitchers. Such a good pick with these Brewers pitchers. Another former Cardinal. I can't get away from him. But I'm not as big of a stickler on that. I know some people care a lot about that. I will complain about it when it hurts me, for sure, because you got to use all of that to your advantage to let the world know that you really got a rough life drafting best ball teams around the clock and streaming them on YouTube. You got to tell people that, like, oh, I've been so disadvantaged in life that I won $20,000 instead of 30. But yeah, they definitely. I would assume that that they copied. They just wanted to match underdogs prize pool, but also they do this shit all the time. Like if we go look at, hold on, and we'll make these picks and then we'll look at. Let's see what the NBA prizes are tonight. Right, 25% to first, $200,000 prize pool of $50K to first, $200,000 prize pool of $50K to first. What I will say that the DraftKings people will tell you, now it's been a while since I've spoken to them about this, but what the DraftKings people at least used to tell you, I don't imagine this has changed too much, is the user cares more about the top prize than they care about the payout structure. Maybe they're referring to the casual fish. That's certainly factored in to that. But that even, the big sharps might complain about the payout structure, but they don't really care. Just win is what is, I guess, what people would tell you. Just win, baby. All right. What is this? What do I have on this team? I should be paying a little bit closer attention. 3, 4, 6. Okay. I could probably be done at outfield. Okay, I'm in on Westberg here. And we're on the clock over here. Let's do Wyatt again. I'll just take Wyatt and Cattell. Take the guys at the top. That's fine. Old Kettle Mart. Speaking of who was awesome last year, good Lord. What a season. Is that dude ever going to get worse? This is a perfect segue into what I was going to say in terms of the payout structure. You'll find a lot of people when they're doing sort of like, where should I play? A little overly fixated on the payout structure, right? Or the rake. And it's like, the rake is about the same on all these contests. Underdogs rake is crazy. The DraftKings rake is crazy. FanDuel's DFS rake is crazy. You know, the government is in my states is charging a fee for every bet placed. DraftKings pays it for me. FanDuel does not. You know, so like at the end of the day, this is a hobby where we're gambling, right? All the typical caveats. Call the number. I'm not going to read the ad read thing, but you know what I mean. Like we're gambling in a huge part. The biggest part of where should you invest your money in any of this is how good are your opponents, right? I'm 37 years old. I try to play basketball multiple times a week. If I went and played at an elementary school against some elementary school kids, I'd have a better chance of winning than when I go to the Y and play against a bunch of kids coming back from college who play college fucking basketball, right? I have no chance to win there. The number one deciding factor on how high is my chance of winning is how good are my opponents. And on DraftKings, say whatever we want about the contest structure and all this other shit, the competition is worse. It is. So it's the number one thing. Okay. We got did somebody already take Weatherholt? No. Okay, we're just taking him. I'm not letting you fuckers get my guy here. So 3 in the $4 hour, Kyle Tucker. You took Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez, Wyatt Langford, Matt Olson, Corey Seager, little Texas too. I don't go crazy with the stacking, by the way. We'll correlate some, we'll stack some, but it's a little bit exaggerated at times in how it works in our brain. It's because it's such an easy shortcut. When I drafted Texas guys, now I got to go take Texas guys later because it gives me an easy path. It's an easy out to help me decide, right? It's a shortcut. About to be back on the clock, but Matt Olson, Corey Seager, Zach Neto, Austin Riley, Braves, Mizorowski, Caglianone, Andy Pages, Brandon Woodruff, Alec Burleson, Jack Flaherty, Jordan Westberg, and J.J. Weatherholt. Boo bitch it is. I have not multi-tabled in a little while. I am multi-tabling in a sport when you're not even fully comfortable yet with what you want to do and who you want to draft and ADPs and such. Not my best decision. Not my best. Arguably the number one thing, definitely the number one thing in poker too. You can, debate the payout structures and all. And again, it's not that those things are not a factor. Of course they are, right? But I think everybody that I've talked to in my decade plus of working in this industry, right, whether it was DFS or sports betting or best ball, whatever, most people you talk to are like, well, let me see the payout. What tournament should I play? Well, let me see the payout structure. Let me see the rake. Maybe let me see the advancement structure. And nobody ever. The first thing you should say is, well, which opponents are worse? It's where you should start every single time. I should say that's for just strict monetary, expected value. There's life EV too, right? If you just enjoy playing on one site, if you just, if there's something about that drafting experience that's better to you, for sure, go for it. Yeah, the McLean. I have forced myself to take McLean one time, and it's pretty crazy. Oh no! Don't take my guys. Don't take my guys, you sons of. Okay, Perdomo, good. Hold on, I said I would take 7. I'm pretty good on the outfield side because I started with 3, so we'll stick to 3 outfielders on that team over there. Okay, Stowers goes. Boom. Soderstrom, Seager. Okay, so now I only have 2 outfielders on this team. This A's stack we got going here where we started Kurtz Rooker. So he says, I don't go crazy with the stacking, and then it all falls right into line for me to stack the fucking A's. But Kurtz, Rooker, Wyatt Langford, Ketel Marte, Tyler Soderstrom, and Corey Seager. That's pretty fun. Those are some good ass hitters. Those are some good baseball players. Do I be a homer and take Herrera? Do I take my top guy on the board? Let's be a homer. Let's be a homer and take Herrera. Now we'll close out with some pitchers. Chris says it's like Dylan Cease, DeGrom, Strider, and then McLean. I like him too, but wow, that's spicy. That is. So there's 2 sides to that coin. That is a struggle of mine. I am in all sports, but also in baseball, or historically have been really a big fan, too much so, of chasing, the young breakouts. And sometimes it works, right? Had many a fun debate about Ellie De La Cruz years ago, right? Many. And it's great when it hits. It's really, really fun. The guy ends up being a first-round pick. You draft 40% of them in the 5th round or whatever. Congratulations. But that logic, when you overdo it, can lead you to so many mistakes, so many other mistakes. And so I've been trying to. Okay. Jacob Lopez. I need to move Kikuchi down a little bit, I think. But that line of thinking can really lead you astray, getting too into both individual high-risk players and putting too many of the same archetype of which is a high-risk player on the same teams together. So like you hit on Ellie, but you drafted like 3 stone cold zeros because you kept swinging for the fences at every turn. And so you still want to take swings on guys who are priced where their upside can far exceed what you're paying for them. Of course, that's this game. But those guys inherently are a little bit lower floor or 0 floor at times, right? Especially as you get later, those guys are 0 floor. And so it's not that you want it, you were trying to win, right? We just talked about you got to get like second place is $60,000. No one's complaining about $60,000, but that's $140,000 less than first place. You're trying to get first. You need to find all of these, not all of these. You need to find a bunch of like guys who really break out, far exceed their price. But you can't draft an entire team of those Joey Gallo home run swings. And I don't mean specifically Joey Gallo. I mean how he approached at bats, right? Which was hit a home run or strike out. You can't have all of that because even over the course of the season, and so that's been my biggest lesson learned. McLean could be an absolute slam dunk. He also could just young players. It's unpredictable. Mike Trout got sent back down to the minors when he came up, right? These like can't miss, really talented young players don't always, and he may be good in years. He may be good in the second half. He may whatever, but he may be good right out of the gate and then hit a slump mid. You just don't know. And so just making sure you win with teams, not individual players, and making sure you're building teams that pair these players together smartly is the far and away across every sport. But in baseball right now, it's my biggest focus and the biggest lesson that I've had to continue to learn. 6 years into this, doing it for 6 years, and you still don't really learn the lesson well enough, despite lots of misses. Right? We're human and we're stupid and we're stubborn. And that's the thing. The floor for young pitchers is really, really low, though I still draft them. And you should still draft them because the ceiling is congrats, you found the next Spencer Strider, right? Or the next Tarek Skubal or whatever. You like finding those guys is insanely valuable. But you have to understand that the probability that hits is really, really low. And most often there's some middle ground that generally tends to happen. And it doesn't mean you can't win with them. Ooh, might want to pay attention here. What do we say? I'm on all pitchers right now. Grayson. Oh no, my draft hacker is not loading. Speaking of low, let's do Arrighetti. I'm still a stickler for Arrighetti. I haven't really diagnosed my takes on him, but I was a big fan of his as a prospect. I'm still holding on to him on my main dynasty team. We'll see how that works out. Let's see. Strider, Abrams, Bush. I'm not taking Butler here, by the way. How about a couple pitchers here? How about a Strider share and Kyle Bradish? I'm a big fan of, and I don't think I drafted him yet. So let's try that one out. Still in the fun stages of roster construction where we can try some different stuff. Yeah, somebody, was it Henny pointed out that do we see closers get drafted here? Scrolling through ADP is a doozy. When you start to see all these damn closers. Just unbelievable. People are unbelievable. Hold on. What is this pitching? What pitching? Mizorowski, Woodruff, Flaherty, Bubich, Lopez, Arrighetti. Oof. How much time do I have left? A boring boomer is not the worst idea on this team, he says, but then I'm going to go stack Morales, Luis Morales. So I don't know how I feel about that pitching staff. Flaherty and Bubich might be having to do a whole lot of work here. And I don't know, but at least I got 7 of them. At least, I can't quit Reed Detmers. He's moving back into the rotation, but I'm going to keep that exposure light on old Reed Detmers. So we're about 20 picks away in the other draft. This one is done. And we went Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez, Wyatt Langford, Matt Olson, Corey Seager, Zach Neto. Austin Riley finally got a pitcher in round 8 with Jacob Mizorowski, Jack Caglianone. And if I screw up these pronunciations, it's going to trigger me. So I'm going to make sure that I look these things up. Let's see. Where do we live? Woodruff, Burleson, Flaherty, Westberg, JJ Weatherholt, of course. You know me. Bubich, one of my favorite late round pitchers. Jacob Lopez, maybe my favorite late round pitcher. Then we spruced it up a little bit with Spencer Arrighetti and Luis Morales. Maybe a swing at pitcher, one swing more than maybe should be, because I'm kind of including Woodruff in sort of that swing category because he's very unlikely to, pitch a million innings. So maybe just turn one of these pitchers into something a little bit different. But overall, I like it. Is DMing me? Normally I have on my phone, I have my notifications off, except for text messages. And I just periodically check my email and Discord and Slack and all that different kind of stuff. But it's tied to my AirPods are tied to my computer, and I don't have my notifications off on my computer. So I keep getting this boop, 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 boop in my ear. It's driving me nuts. What happened to my draft hacker here? There we go. Only done a couple of drafts on Underdog. Is the future AL Rookie of the Year winner still going in the last round? Carter Jensen. This would have been a great team for him. What's Carter Jensen's timeline? Is he gonna? I know he played at the end of last year. Is he projected in the opening day lineup? He is. Yeah, the platoon thing is a little annoying. I'm not a Carter Jensen expert. I'll be completely honest with you. I remember him from last season and the very little bit of prospect work I've done thus far. Just taking a quick scroll. AL Rookie of the Year seems rich. Are you a Royals fan? That would explain that. But I'm sure as time goes on, the Carter Jensen types of the world will get into and so I assume leading off against righties, but not playing against lefties. And I struggle with those guys. A lot. Doesn't mean that's exactly what will happen this year, but also it's a really quick rise and small sample rise to 43 games at AAA and then 20 games in the bigs is when he really shined. The rest of the prospect profile, it's okay. Doesn't really run. Doesn't really have a ton of power, though he started to flash it at the end of last year and may get platooned. Not in my rankings at the moment. But I'm always open to changing my tune on some of the young guys that I'm probably discounting too much. But there's a little peek behind the curtain of here's okay. Talented, yep. Going to be out there on opening day. Okay, good. And then we start to dig in okay, let's look at this profile and let's see. Pardone. Let's Santander. How about a Mackenzie Gore? We'll get a little more pitcher friendly in this draft than we did in the last one. Snell, no, I don't have the latest on Brandon Woodruff. You can see I was looking up Brandon Ayuk's contract. Yeah, I know it's a gamble, but I've been, especially once they traded Freddie Peralta, more bullish on Woodruff. The main concern, and somebody asked about this, so it's a good segue. The main concern with Snell is some health concerns. Woodruff is not so much. Is he going to be ready as is he ever going to pitch enough, whether it be so the hard part with the injured pitchers is not only do they get injured a lot and miss time, but teams will then proactively be very cautious with the pitchers who have continued to, especially veterans who have continued to have injury problems. And so you sort of get double dinged, right? They may get hurt a lot, and then we're going to skip starts. We're not going to get those 2-start weeks from those guys as frequently. It's like Joel Embiid in basketball, right? He's never going to play a back-to-back ever again. So even though he's performing, you're just never going to get the truly, truly monster weeks, and that's difficult to sign up for a pitcher. I don't think Woodruff is quite that. But the problem with the Dodgers is you're combining that with a like locked in 6-man rotation. They got pitchers for days that they will use. They'll skip these guys' starts. It's going to be very difficult. I'm not drafting 0 of the Dodgers pitchers because a baseball season can shake out in weird ways. You can say as many times as you want to have a 6-man rotation. You want to take it light on your pitchers. And then, 2 of them get hurt and maybe one is struggling and you can't rest Blake Snell, right? You're still trying. They're still the Dodgers. They're still trying to win as many games as possible. So I try not to like completely fixate on that one thing of the Dodgers. At the end of the day, they're really good pitchers with a really good offense behind them, and they're going to win a lot of games, and they're going to score a lot of fantasy points when they do pitch. Their innings are often limited, /pitch count is often limited, and their overall volume of starts is often limited. That is the way the Dodgers are playing it, as I think that they probably should. But things don't always work out that way, right? In a season, sometimes crazy stuff happens, and guys all of a sudden, Blake Snell is definitely starting every 5 days down the stretch, and who knows? But that's sort of why some of those guys are discounted, and they're very hot button. It's the like 6-man rotation and the rest of starting pitchers and the health of starting pitchers and stuff is such a unique thing in baseball. I don't really think that there's a wrong way to go about it. But how I'm going about it is I'm drafting those guys. I'm being more cautious about the Dodgers pitchers, and I would definitely not consider myself that I'm overweight on those guys, but I also think it's a little bit foolish to draft 0. That seems like a little bit of overconfidence, and I've operated in areas of overconfidence plenty of times over the years. And at the end of the day, how I sort of think about best ball overall, it's kind of sort of coming full circle back to the Corey Seager thing. Is like, are you a really good player? Right? Like, draft the really good players. Some of them we're hoping that they'll become really good players, but like, are you really good at your job? Are you an awesome hitter? So maybe that goes back to the Jensen. Like, maybe Jensen is an awesome hitter, and I'm being foolish by overly fixating on those couple of flaws that he has. Maybe, right? Is Blake Snell a really good pitcher on a really good team that's going to win a lot of games? Yep. Hurt, 6-man rotation, whatever. Those are flaws. And so that means I don't want to make it like, I don't want my season to be decided by Blake Snell. I don't want my season to be decided by Brandon Woodruff. I don't want my season to be decided by Carter Jensen or whoever, right? I don't want my season to be decided by these guys, except JJ Weatherholt, because he is a lock to be awesome, obviously. But that's kind of how I think about those guys in all sports. I'm trying to get better at it in football too. I don't think Woodruff is the Woodruff we remember. He was, and that's another. We're working off small samples, and I don't mean in your point. I mean in my point of drafting him is it's a lot of missed time. This is a lot of missed time, and he's older. And even if you get the healthy version, is he the awesome version? So again, that's why those are the guys I don't really want to have my season. How many? I really got to pay better attention on these stream drafts. Okay, 4 infielders, 3 outfielders. Ooh, I don't have Dylan Cruz yet, which is intentional, but maybe this is a Cruz team. I'm going to take my boy Torkels. No, we're going to take the Tiger stack here. Kerry Carpenter. Speaking of guys who are going to get fucking platooned, he says as he drafts Kerry Carpenter. One interesting thing about the platoon stuff that I try to keep in mind is, especially for teams like, say, the Tigers, you're definitely going to get a platoon. You're going to get pinch hit for and times like that. But you're also going to come in to games that you didn't start. Right. So that's a feature for a Jensen. That's a feature for right, Kerry Carpenter. Kerry Carpenter is an upper tier, clearly upper echelon hitter against right-handed pitching. But he doesn't get to play against left-handed pitching. And so that's not great, right? We want our guys in there for as many at-bats. Even if you're worse against a certain handedness, you're not going to score 0 fantasy points, right, against that handedness. So we need you in the game to score those fantasy points. That's a very real flaw of Kerry Carpenter. But again, this, like, is he really good? He's really good at a thing for sure. And I'm trying to open myself up to the platoon guys a little bit more because of that, right? And so to sort of even walk back my Jensen stuff a little bit is like, now the Royals are different from, say, the Tigers and the Rays, who are handle these things a little bit more strictly. But if you, okay, so the other team, brings in a lefty reliever in the 8th inning, you come out. The other team starts a lefty, you don't start the game, but you come in the 5th or 6th inning or whatever, right? So it's like, it's not ideal. I would rather you play all the games and all the at-bats, but you can soak back a little bit of that value. And when we're talking about, pick 130 and beyond, you can still have big weeks getting subbed out of games. J Shap says, J Shap Rocky, shout out to you for the name. Mookie Betts losing. So it's funny. I don't mean this to you. I assume this is probably your first time tuning in, and I would like to welcome you and ask everyone to click the thumb. Why do we also click the thumbs up? It's like, we should just click the thumb. If you really hate it that much, whatever, click the thumb. But it's so funny. I've done we've done two, the last week and this week, baseball shows. The Mookie Betts thing comes up all the time. It might be over discussed at this point in our like, I'm talking about the niche within a niche within a niche. In our little version of niche inception, right? Or dream within a dream within a dream. The Mookie Betts losing weight thing comes up endlessly. But I agree. Mookie is polarizing. Mookie, right? Was it truly just that, and he was just never able to totally recover, right? He's changing positions and all that kind of stuff. Was it that? Or like, is this older guy, this small little older guy who shouldn't be expected to continue to hit for power and steal a bunch of bases? Is father time coming for him like father time comes for everyone? I don't know. I don't know how anyone could ever possibly say confidently which way that it is. I tend to side more with, like, when you show me serious drop off, I think a lot of people, and I don't think that this is wrong, but maybe this is where I vary a little bit, is a lot of people are willing to, right? I have this reason. So I have this bad season, but I have this reason that I could explain it away. Okay. Right. I'll write that off, and I'll take, because I got this long record of this guy being good. But it's not like we're getting this guy in the 10th round. We're still paying him, in the 40s or 50, whatever price. And I tend to be like, once you've showed me real drop off, I would rather be early than late. Right. So you may bounce back this year, but you're probably not old Mookie Betts still. You may bounce back, but you're probably not still old Mookie Betts. And am I willing to live with not having that player at that price? I don't know. I haven't fully made that decision yet, but that's sort of how it's like. I'm always trying to think about being early rather than late. And so then so like when you see a Seager or something like that, I'm like, I don't think we've reached the let's be early to his collapse, his demise. I don't think we've reached that. You could make more of that case for even the Freddie Freeman, who I do like too. Let's do Brenton Doyle. What do I got going on over here? A little weak in the outfield. 5.355 is where we're sitting. We'll do Chapman. Boring. Speaking of the boring, super boring infielder, Matt Chapman, but a good goddamn professional baseball player. He might be the epitome of the most boring oatmeal ass pick that you've ever seen. That I probably would never, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I would have been like, what are you winning with Matt? Like, really? What are you winning? And I'm like, I don't know. All I see is a really damn good baseball player still. And like, whatever. Just if you can guarantee me that in rounds 13, 14, 15, 16, I'm drafting really good baseball players all the time, I think I'll just roll the dice and deal with that. Whereas like old me would have been like, what am I going to win with that guy? He's never going to, make a huge difference. Let me search for the next young hot, and I'm drafting some of the next young hotness, right? Old and busted, new hotness. JJ Weatherholt is new hotness. Matt Chapman is old and busted, but he's not busted. He's still really good. And so try not to overcorrect to a total boring ass roster. That's why I'm still targeting some of these rookies and such, but you get the point. Who has more value, a full-time Josh Lowe or platoon Kerry Carpenter? I mean, Josh Lowe is not a good hitter, but he is playing every day, and he has a sort of a fantasy-friendly profile. So I get that. I like Josh Lowe too. No pushback on him from me, but there's a lot of everyday players who don't produce meaningful fantasy results also. And he hasn't really produced meaningful fantasy results himself. So it's tricky. I think Kerry Carpenter does, but I also like Josh. You can kind of pair them together, honestly. Right? Take them and Connor Griffin. Take Kerry Carpenter, Connor Griffin, and Carter Jensen, and then put Lowe in there because Lowe's playing every day. Right? You'll get some spikes from Carpenter, and then you'll get some down weeks when they face some lefties and he has a bad week. And then hopefully you get the upside from the rookies. But then you got this old and busted. That's from Men in Black for everyone that doesn't know the reference. He's a good fit on plenty of teams. I like him. And there's still fantasy upside. I'm not trying to I'm not actually trying to call him like a bum or whatever, but he's not going to break out and we're like, holy shit. There's no Pete Crow Armstrong in the Josh Lowe profile. You're more just buying. It's like buying routes in football, but sometimes you buy routes and you get a spurt like Michael Wilson had, but also sometimes you get Josh Palmer. You know what I mean? Yeah, Lowe's got to play every day. I agree. Oh, shoot. Didn't mean to chew ice. I don't know if that's probably not the best ASMR. People chewing ice. I think my wife would burn her earbuds if there was someone chewing ice in it. Andrew Painter at pick 158, huh? Speaking of wow. Holy moly. Is the lowdown? Are you here? Speaking of drafts, the Mariners stack to start. You're going to talk about swinging for the fences. Stowers, Marcy, Yasevich, Jacob Wilson, Colson Montgomery, Chase Burns, Chandler Simpson, Andrew Painter. I like it. But comes back with Wilson Contreras, a pretty good fit amongst all of that those chaotic upside swings. What's pitcher look like? I don't love Rodon, but I think he's all right on this team, actually. But Wallner and Colton Cowser. You know what? No, I'll take Cowser. Oh, shoot. I almost just clicked Wallner, too. Hold on. So that would be my last outfielder. I don't have Logan Henderson yet because I probably need to Spencer, Bradish, Gore. Let's do a Logan Henderson team. So we're still in the early stages of my portfolio building, and I need to get exposure to some of these guys. Even though, I don't fully love not fully. I don't love the Logan Henderson overall price, like relative to some of the other late pitchers that I like a little bit better. But it's another one of those that I've struggled with so bad over the years of like, there's absolutely no reason to not like, I always say, like, take your medicine on this guy. Like, he's a 16th round pick and you think he should be a 17th or even an 18th rounder. Like, who gives a shit? You think he's worthy of being drafted. He's a young guy with upside. Take your medicine. No one says you got to make this guy a pillar of no one even says you have to draft 8% of him. But there's so many guys that would fall through the cracks for me because you're so easy to get fixated on, like, I like this guy better than this guy. So why would I ever draft the second guy? It's like, A, you can draft them together. B, just because you like one guy better doesn't mean the other guy should never, ever, ever make it into your portfolio. Right? That's it's not the same thing as the Kerry Carpenter and what you want to call it? Josh Lowe discussion. But you could make that case of, like, you like Josh Lowe better than Kerry Carpenter. Right? And no pushback from me. They're drafted a little differently, right? But still, just using that conversation since we just had it. But, like, you also think, like, yeah, Carpenter seems fine. Like, all of those guys that you're like, I like him or he seems fine, I just like somebody else better. Those are the guys that I've screwed up year after year after year. And what I think, I was fighting back on the idea of, like, well, you got to draft X% of all these guys. You can't get super over, right? There's also the myth of that, of, like, you have to cap your exposures and you can't take big stands. And so it'd be like, well, I like this guy, so I'm going to draft him. But then but it has trickle down effects. So just like both of those things have trickle down effects. If you're unwilling to take stands, if you're unwilling to ever reach for ADP or whatever, right? If you're unwilling to take a stand, the trickle down effect of that is there's so many player combinations you are not going to have, right? This player you draft 15% of them. 22 teams. You have 22 teams of this player. That's only 22 variations. Like, you may not even get him with every first rounder. Nonetheless, every 12th rounder that you like, right? So you're not going to get the player combination. If you don't take stands, you're not going to get and you're not cognizant of your player combinations. You're just not going to get guys put together on teams together. But if you take very big stands, you may get combinations of that player that you wanted, but other players who you liked, but you didn't like, you thought were genuinely good picks, but you didn't like them quite as much as this other guy, they fall through the cracks. And now not only do you not have enough shares of them individually, you don't have enough combinations of them with other players, right? So it's like there's no way to accomplish all of it. There's no way to check both of those boxes perfectly. but we can try to somehow get in the middle. Like I want to take stands on stuff, but I want to make sure it doesn't come at the expense of other guys who I actually like. I need it to be intentional about, right? If I'm going to get to 20% on this guy, that's 12% I have to pull from somewhere else. And I need it to be specific to those guys. And then I need to take those 20, those 30 shares of that player and make sure those 30 shares look like how I want them to look. All right, we're back on the clock, 17. Can I take Weatherholt now? Did anybody take him? Yeah, of course somebody did. Did I type that in right? Yeah, of course somebody took Weatherholt. I'm going to take Wallner as my last outfielder here. That's 7. Yeah. 7, Matt Wallner. We took Herrera last time. I say Paredes is a pretty damn good price. What's this news on him? Oh, this arbitration. Yeah, let's take Paredes. Another boring ass, but just like a good baseball player. Isaac Paredes is a good baseball player. I knew it. I knew it would be one of you. I knew it would be one of you. This is what I'm telling you. If I had right now, if you said, Eric, who do you want your highest exposure players to be? And look, I know that the Weatherholt thing is a little bit of a bit because I'm a Cardinals fan, but I also just I think he's a freaking awesome pick, especially after I was like a little cautious before they traded Brendan Donovan. I kind of thought Donovan was going to go, so I wasn't too worried about it, right? But we get rid of Arenado, we get rid of Brendan Donovan, and JJ Weatherholt is, top 5 prospect in baseball. He's major league ready. The Cardinals need to sell some tickets, by the way, like badly. They don't have a lot of paths to selling those tickets unless he's with the big league club. Anyway, and even if he doesn't get called up, whatever. But I do think he's going to make the opening day roster. I straight up think he's a really good pick. I want him to be one of my highest owned players, and I want Corey Seager to be one of my highest. Those are my sort of stands, if you will. I actually don't have any like mega strong takes outside of that. I have other stuff I like, dislike, but I'm still learning. Right? It's spring training still 2 weeks away, nonetheless, the season. So we got a little bit of time to hone in on our takes, right? I can't even get those guys as often as I want them. And I have them ranked a billion picks ahead of ADP. It's painful. Yep. Moving away from formerly Fox Sports to Bally to FanDuel Sports Network, now to MLB TV. They're like cutting their revenue in half. TV revenue. Yeah. Paredes is an awesome pick. 219 ADP is ridiculous. So we got two more picks. I think these had to be pitchers. Yeah. 2 more picks, 2 pitchers. Let's see. Let's do the board. We did a little fun athletics stack from the beginning, and we specifically did it right after saying, don't overly fixate on stacking offenses, and then I stacked this offense. But I've been honestly wanting to try this for a little bit, so I'm excited we got to do it on this show. Kurtz and Rooker, Langford and Kettlemart, then Soderstrom. Obviously, there's three A's. I mean, I think those 3 guys are Rooker to a much lesser degree. I think Rooker is fine. I think Kurtz and Soderstrom are awesome picks. Than my guy Corey Seager. Did a little pitching stuff that we didn't do in the other draft, and I don't do this a ton, but I probably need to do it a little bit more. Spencer Strider, Kyle Bradish, to kick off a pitching group. That way, I wasn't quite so pressed into some pitchers in these middle rounds, and I kind of like how it worked out. Anthony Santander for my 3rd outfielder, which I very seriously needed. Mackenzie Gore, Spencer Torkelson, Kerry Carpenter, Brenton Doyle, Matt Chapman, Colton Cowser, Logan Henderson to get my 4th pitcher, and then Matt Wallner and Isaac Paredes. That's a good team. This is a good team. I'm into this. That's too funny. Yeah, exactly. It sucks when you're in quotes, says Chris, on a player, but your exposure wasn't high enough to matter, right? That happens all the time. I mean, it happens every year to thousands of people. You're like, sure, I liked him. He wasn't like my, people always want, who's your core player? Who's your guy? Who's your flag plant or whatever? And that's all they really care about. But you're like, I don't know. I liked this other guy. He wasn't like, I like wasn't going to have him define my season. And then he defines the season. And you're like, shit, I should have had more of that guy. And it's really easy. It's so much easier for those guys to fall through the cracks than it is to figure out who you like and dislike. There's like 10 to 20% of the player pool you dislike. There's 10 to 20% of the player pool you love. And really the rest is all in the middle. If you're being like reasonable and honest though with yourself. Lopez. I don't really want to get into another one of these. I could do Messick. Why are these closers coming up on here? How about a Zebby this time? And I haven't drafted Zebby yet. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. Find myself zeroing out a lot more players in MLB than NFL. Yeah. There's just more guys and more rounds. So you got to be a little bit pickier. And I think that the market is just less efficient. There's less people, playing really grinding MLB Best Ball. So it's right. The more inefficient the market is, the more there are guys that you can just say this price doesn't make any sense, right? One way or the other, too high, too low. So you can just move off of those guys. It's difficult because even the guys that you probably are like, I'm just going to zero you out. That doesn't mean they're like a stone cold lock to suck or whatever. But I think about it more in like, even if my fade goes poorly, can I live with that? Right? Is my season over? Or is it just like an annoyance? That's how I tend to think about my fades. Like, do I feel like this shit is over? I am dead and buried. Or I'm just like, that's kind of annoying that guy's like playing well or whatever. Like that's, like Jung Ho Lee. Like, is there a scenario? Is there ever a scenario in which that is anything more than a minor annoyance? Like, I don't really think so. He steals a few more bases than I thought. He hits a couple triples into the gap in San Francisco that are annoying or whatever, but like at what point is a Luis Ariz, like ever burying me? And you can take that too far because you could, right? That's the logic that leads you to like, well, Matt Chapman could never bury me, right? Of course not. But like he could be a significant factor. So there's levels to that. And I mean, shit, Matt Chapman could bounce back and hit a lot more home runs than we expect, even in San Francisco. That offense could be really good. Obviously, he's a teammate of Jung Ho, could hit that triple and Chapman drives him in, Anyway, you get the point. All right. That was an exceptional amount of fun. I'm going to try to do several more baseball shows before we get to opening day. I'll dissect some of my portfolio and stuff like that. If you guys could give me a wonderful thumbs up. If you have any questions, comments, of course, you can join us in the Discord, which is just $5 a month or a part of your premium Spike Week package, which you get absolutely everything with. If you could, subscribe to the channel to support it and all that kind of stuff. That way, I do see, subscribers and all the analytics and stuff behind the like baseball and basketball and stuff. Cause I would like to keep doing, as I mentioned before, as much of this stuff as possible. We all love the NFL, but there's something special about these, baseball, basketball, etc. sports that are a ton of fun to draft and a ton of fun to talk about. So probably be back next week with another baseball show. I will see you guys then. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Hopefully the weather gets a little bit nicer, and I'll catch you guys next week. Cheers.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? If you turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.